I never thought I'd be the kind of person who could destroy someone's life, but here I am, sitting alone in my flat at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep because of what I did. The guilt doesn't fade, it doesn't soften with time. If anything, it grows sharper, more suffocating, like a weight pressing down on my chest every single day. I cheated with my best friend's fiancé, and I regret it more than anything I've ever done. Her name was Emma. Emma Hartley. We'd been best friends since university, nearly 8 years of friendship, of late night conversations, of being there for each other through breakups, job losses, family drama, everything. She was the kind of friend who remembered your birthday without a reminder, who showed up at your door with wine when you were crying, who genuinely celebrated your wins like they were her own, and I betrayed her in the worst possible way. It started so innocuously, so stupidly. That's what makes it even worse. There was no grand justification, no moment where I could say I was swept away by something beyond my control. It was just me making selfish choice after selfish choice until there was no going back. Emma met Daniel in the spring of 2022. She'd been single for about a year after a rough breakup with her ex, Marcus, who cheated on her with a coworker. She was cautious about dating again, understandably. But then Daniel came along, Daniel Reed, a consultant at one of the big firms in London, charming, successful, attentive. She met him through a mutual friend at a dinner party, and within weeks, she was glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. I was happy for her. I really was. At least I thought I was. Daniel was everything Marcus wasn't. He was thoughtful, mature, emotionally present. He'd send her flowers at work, plan weekend getaways, text her good morning every single day. Emma would tell me about their dates, about how safe she felt with him, how he made her laugh, how he talked about their future together like it was a certainty, not a possibility. And I smiled and nodded and said all the right things. But somewhere deep inside, something ugly was growing. I was single at the time, had been for over 2 years. My last relationship had ended badly. Another guy who lost interest once the novelty wore off. Another reminder that I wasn't enough. I was 28, watching all my friends get engaged, get married, build lives that looked stable and happy, while I was still swiping through dating apps and going on disappointing first dates. I wasn't envious of Emma, not at first, but the more she talked about Daniel, the more I started to feel this gnawing emptiness. She had someone who chose her every day, someone who looked at her like she was the only person in the room. And I had nothing. I met Daniel properly about 2 months into their relationship. Emma invited me to join them for drinks at a bar in Shoreditch. I didn't want to be the third wheel, but she insisted. She wanted her best friend and her boyfriend to get along. And we did. We got along too well. Daniel was easy to talk to, funny, intelligent, quick-witted in a way that kept the conversation moving. He asked me about my work, about my life, and he actually listened. Not the polite nodding people do when they're waiting for their turn to speak. He genuinely engaged, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I remember thinking, as the three of us sat there laughing over cocktails, that Emma was lucky, that she'd found someone special, and I remember feeling a pang of something I couldn't quite name. After that night, the three of us started spending more time together. Emma would invite me along to dinners, to pub nights, to Sunday brunches. She loved having us both there. She joked that we were her two favorite people, that she was building her dream team. And Daniel and I became friends. Genuine friends, I thought. We'd text occasionally, nothing inappropriate, just memes or funny observations about something Emma had said. He'd ask for advice on gifts for her birthday. I'd recommend restaurants for their date nights. It felt harmless. But looking back, I can see the warning signs I ignored. The way I'd check my phone a little too eagerly when I saw his name. The way I'd dress a little more carefully when I knew I'd be seeing him. The way I'd replay our conversations in my head, looking for subtext that probably wasn't there. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just enjoying having a new friend, that I wasn't attracted to him, not really, that I would never do anything to hurt Emma. I was lying to myself. The first crack appeared in October, about 6 months into their relationship. Emma had gone to visit her parents in Yorkshire for the weekend. Daniel was supposed to go with her, but something came up at work, a big client presentation he couldn't miss. Emma was disappointed but understanding. She told me she wished she could cancel, but her mom was having a milestone birthday, and she couldn't not be there. Daniel texted me on Saturday evening, just a casual message asking if I wanted to grab dinner since we were both free. He said he was bored and didn't feel like cooking, and he knew a great Italian place near my flat. I should have said no. I should have made up an excuse, but I didn't. We met at the restaurant, and it felt different without Emma there. More intimate somehow, even though we were just sitting across from each other at a small table talking about work and TV shows and nothing particularly meaningful. But there was an energy between us that I couldn't ignore, a warmth, a tension, a feeling like we were crossing some invisible line just by being there together. We had wine, more wine than I'd intended to drink, and when he walked me home afterward, we stood outside my building for longer than necessary, neither of us wanting to say goodbye. Nothing happened that night. He hugged me, a perfectly appropriate, friendly hug, and then he left. But as I watched him walk away, I felt something shift inside me, something dangerous. I didn't tell Emma about the dinner. Not because anything inappropriate had happened, but because I knew how it would sound. And that omission, that small, deliberate lie of silence, was the first domino. After that night, Daniel and I started texting more frequently, still nothing overtly inappropriate, just more often, more personal. He'd tell me about frustrations at work that he didn't want to burden Emma with. I'd vent about my own job stress. We became each other's confidants in small ways. And then, in early December, Emma asked me to help her plan a surprise for Daniel's birthday. She wanted to throw him a party at their flat, invite his close friends and family, make it really special. She was so excited, so full of love and generosity, and I helped her organize everything: the guest list, the decorations, the food, the playlist. The party was beautiful. Daniel was genuinely surprised and touched. Emma glowed with happiness, standing beside him, her arm around his waist, beaming at all their friends. I watched them together and felt that ugly thing inside me grow stronger. Later that evening, after most guests had left and Emma was cleaning up in the kitchen, Daniel found me on the balcony. I'd stepped outside for some air, feeling overwhelmed by my own thoughts. He asked if I was okay. I said I was fine, just tired. And then he said something that changed everything. He said, "You know, you're really important to me. I'm glad we've become friends." It was such a simple statement, so innocent on the surface, but the way he looked at me when he said it, there was something there, something I'd been pretending not to see. I should have walked away. I should have gone back inside and helped Emma with the dishes and pretended I hadn't noticed. But instead, I held his gaze and said, "You're important to me too." And in that moment, the line we'd been dancing around became clear to both of us. Nothing happened that night either, but from that point on, everything changed. The texts became more frequent, more flirtatious, more dangerous. We'd make jokes that had double meanings. We'd compliment each other in ways that felt charged. We'd share things we knew we shouldn't be sharing. Emma noticed nothing. She was busy with work and wedding planning. Yes, they'd gotten engaged in November, and she was over the moon. She'd show me photos of dresses, ask my opinion on venues, talk about flowers and color schemes and seating arrangements. And the whole time, I was texting her fiancé behind her back. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew it every single day, but I couldn't stop. It was like an addiction. This secret connection with Daniel felt like the most exciting thing in my life. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, desired, special, and I convinced myself that as long as we didn't actually do anything physical, it wasn't really cheating. It was just a friendship that had gotten a bit too close. We could pull back before anyone got hurt. I was delusional. The night it happened was in early January. Emma had gone to a work conference in Edinburgh, a 3-day event she'd been stressing about for weeks. Daniel was supposed to stay in London and work, but on the first evening after she'd left, he texted me and asked if I wanted to come over to watch a film. He said he was feeling lonely in the flat without her. Every alarm bell in my head was ringing. Every rational part of me knew exactly what this was. But I ignored all of it. I went to their flat. The flat Emma and Daniel shared, where I'd been dozens of times before for dinners and game nights and lazy Sundays, but this time it felt different, forbidden. We opened a bottle of wine, we sat on the sofa and put on some Netflix series neither of us was really paying attention to, and within an hour we were kissing. I won't go into the details. I won't relive every moment of that night because the shame is too overwhelming. But we slept together, in the flat he shared with Emma, in the home they were building together. And afterward, as I lay there beside him in the dark, all I could think about was Emma's face, her trust, her love, her excitement about planning their wedding. Daniel and I didn't speak much that night. The weight of what we'd done settled over us immediately. He drove me home around 3 in the morning, and we sat in silence for most of the journey. When I got out of the car, he said, "This can't happen again." I nodded. I agreed. We both knew we'd crossed a line we could never uncross, but we also both knew we'd do it again. And we did. Twice more over the next 2 weeks, both times when Emma was away or working late. Each time we swore it would be the last. Each time we'd avoid each other for a few days and then fall back into the same pattern. I became someone I didn't recognize. I'd sit across from Emma at coffee shops, listening to her talk about wedding venues, and I'd nod and smile while guilt churned in my stomach. She'd show me photos of bridesmaid dresses and ask if I'd be willing to wear lavender or if I'd prefer sage green. And I'd feel like I was going to be sick, but I didn't stop. I didn't confess. I didn't walk away. I told myself I was trapped. That if I told Emma the truth, I'd lose her forever. That if I ended things with Daniel, I'd be alone again. I created a maze of justifications and excuses, anything to avoid facing what I'd become. The end came in February, and it wasn't because either of us developed a conscience. Emma found out by accident, the most mundane, stupid accident. She left her phone at home one morning and came back during her lunch break to grab it. Daniel was working from home that day, and I'd texted him something I shouldn't have, something flirtatious and unmistakably inappropriate. His phone was on the kitchen counter, and it lit up with my message just as Emma walked in. She saw my name, she saw enough of the message, and she unlocked his phone. I wasn't there when it happened, but Daniel called me 2 hours later, his voice shaking. He said Emma had read through weeks of our messages. She'd seen everything, the flirting, the planning, the references to the nights we'd spent together. He said she'd thrown him out, that she'd called off the wedding, that she was devastated. And then he said she wanted to talk to me. I felt like my entire world was collapsing. The thing I'd been so terrified of, losing Emma, was happening, and it was entirely my fault. I thought about running, about moving cities, about disappearing, and never facing the consequences of what I'd done, but I couldn't. I owed her the truth, even if it destroyed me. I went to the flat that evening. Emma answered the door, and the look on her face is something I'll never forget. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was betrayal so raw and deep that it felt like looking into a mirror and seeing my own soul. She let me in. We sat across from each other in the living room where we'd spent countless evenings, laughing and sharing our lives, and she asked me one question. Why? I tried to answer. I tried to explain the loneliness, the insecurity, the way I'd convinced myself it wasn't as bad as it was. But every word that came out of my mouth sounded pathetic and hollow. There was no explanation that could justify what I'd done. Emma didn't yell. She didn't cry. Not in front of me. She just sat there, looking at me like I was a stranger, and said, "You were my best friend. I trusted you more than anyone, and you did this." I started crying then, sobbing actually, apologizing over and over, begging for forgiveness, saying I'd do anything to make it right. And she said very quietly, "There's nothing you can do. You can't undo what you did. You can't give me back the version of my life where my best friend didn't sleep with my fiancé." She told me to leave. She said she never wanted to see me or hear from me again, and I left, knowing I'd lost the most important friendship of my life because of my own selfishness. The weeks that followed were the darkest I've ever experienced. Emma blocked me on everything: social media, phone, email. I had no way to reach her, no way to apologize further, no way to know how she was coping. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved out of the flat, that she'd told her family and her close friends what happened, that she was trying to rebuild her life, and I heard that Daniel had tried to get her back, that he'd sent her flowers, letters, messages through friends, that he'd begged for another chance. She refused. She cut him out completely, just like she'd cut me out. Our mutual friends chose sides. Most of them chose Emma, as they should have. A few tried to stay neutral, but eventually they drifted away from me too. They didn't want to be associated with what I'd done. I lost my entire social circle. I lost the person I'd considered my best friend since I was 21. And for what? For a few stolen nights with a man who wasn't mine, who never would be mine? Daniel and I didn't end up together. Of course we didn't. What we had wasn't built on anything real. It was built on secrecy and betrayal and selfishness. After Emma found out, we tried to talk a few times, but there was nothing left. We destroyed something beautiful together, and all we had in common was guilt. He moved to Manchester a few months later for a new job. I haven't heard from him since. I stayed in London, but the city felt different. Everywhere I went, I was reminded of Emma. The coffee shop where we'd meet on Saturday mornings, The bar where we'd celebrated her engagement, the streets we'd walked down together, talking about everything and nothing. I thought about leaving, starting over somewhere else, but I realized that wouldn't solve anything. The guilt would follow me wherever I went. I started seeing a therapist in March. I needed help understanding how I'd become the kind of person who could do what I did. And slowly, painfully, I started to unpack it all. The therapist helped me see that my actions came from a place of deep insecurity and fear, that I'd spent so long feeling inadequate, feeling like I wasn't enough, that when Daniel showed me attention, I latched onto it like a lifeline, that I'd prioritized my own need to feel wanted over the well-being of someone I claimed to love. But understanding where it came from didn't excuse it. It didn't make it better. It just helped me see the truth more clearly. I was selfish, I was weak, and I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I wrote Emma a letter in April. I didn't expect her to read it, and I didn't expect a response. I just needed to say what I hadn't been able to say properly that night in her flat. I apologized without making excuses. I told her she deserved better from me, that she'd been the best friend I'd ever had, and that I would spend the rest of my life regretting what I did. I told her I understood if she never forgave me, and that I hoped she was finding happiness and peace. I sent it to her parents' address, hoping they'd pass it on. I never heard back. I don't blame her. A few months later, I saw on social media, through someone's public post, that Emma had started dating someone new, someone who treated her well, from what I could see, and I felt a complicated mix of emotions: relief that she was moving forward, sadness that I wasn't part of her life to celebrate it with her, and a deep, aching sense of loss. It's been nearly 2 years since everything fell apart, 2 years of carrying this weight, of waking up some mornings and forgetting for just a moment before the memory crashes back in. 2 years of wondering if I'll ever stop feeling like this. I've changed in some ways. I've worked on myself, really worked, not just surface level self-improvement. I've examined my patterns, my insecurities, the ways I've hurt people throughout my life without even realizing it. I've learned to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. I've learned that being alone doesn't mean being inadequate, but I haven't forgiven myself. I don't know if I ever will. People ask me sometimes if I've dated anyone since then. I haven't. Not because I'm pining for Daniel. I'm not. Whatever I felt for him was never real. It was a fantasy, a projection of what I wanted, not who he actually was. I haven't dated because I don't trust myself. I'm terrified that I'll hurt someone again, that when things get difficult or uncertain, I'll make the same selfish choices I made before. My therapist says that's something I need to work through. That punishing myself forever isn't the answer. That growth means learning to trust yourself again, but I'm not there yet. I think about Emma often. I wonder if she thinks about me at all, or if she's managed to move on completely, to let go of the anger and hurt. I hope she has. She deserves peace. I think about the version of my life that could have existed if I'd made different choices. The version where I said no to that first dinner with Daniel, where I maintained boundaries, where I was the friend Emma deserved, where I was standing beside her on her wedding day instead of being the reason the wedding didn't happen. But that version doesn't exist. This is the life I have, the one shaped by my choices, by my betrayal, by the consequences I have to live with. I've learned a lot about myself through this, though I wish I'd learned it differently. I've learned that trust is fragile and precious, and once you break it, you can't put it back together. I've learned that momentary gratification isn't worth the lasting pain it causes. I've learned that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone you shouldn't be with. And I've learned that some mistakes can't be fixed. Some relationships can't be repaired. Some things, once broken, stay broken. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I'm more careful now, more aware of how my actions affect others. I'm more honest with myself about my motivations. I'm building a life that isn't defined by desperation or fear of being alone. But I'm also someone who destroyed her best friend's life. That's part of my story now, part of who I am, and I have to carry that. I still see Emma's Instagram sometimes. I have a separate account she doesn't know about, and I check it occasionally just to see if she's okay. I know that's not healthy. I know I should let her go completely, but I can't seem to stop myself from making sure she's all right. Last month I saw that she got engaged. To the man she'd been dating, the one from those posts months ago. The ring was beautiful. She looked radiant. The comments were full of friends and family celebrating her, wishing her happiness. And I cried, not because I wasn't happy for her. I am. But because I'll never get to be part of that happiness, I'll never get to celebrate with her, to help her plan her wedding, to stand beside her on the most important day of her life. I did that, I made that choice, and now I live with it. Sometimes people who know what happened, the few who still talk to me, ask if I've learned my lesson, if I'd do things differently now, and the answer is yes. Absolutely yes. But that doesn't matter, does it? You can't go back and unmake your mistakes. You can only move forward and try to be better. I'm trying to be better. Every day I'm trying. I'm trying to be more honest, more thoughtful, more aware of how my choices ripple outward and affect the people around me. I'm trying to rebuild my life into something I can be proud of. But some days, the weight of what I did is so heavy I can barely breathe. Some days, I look at myself in the mirror and see someone I don't recognize, someone capable of terrible things, someone who hurt the person she loved most in the world. And I have to remind myself that this is part of growth too, sitting with the discomfort, accepting the consequences, not running from the truth of who I've been. I'll probably never see Emma again. She's built a new life without me, and she has every right to. I'm genuinely happy that she's found love again, that she's moving forward, that she's not letting what I did define the rest of her life. But I think about her every single day. I think about the friendship we had, the bond I destroyed, the trust I shattered. And I think about how different things could have been if I'd just been strong enough to do the right thing. I can't undo what I did. I can't give Emma back the friendship I destroyed or the months of pain I caused her. I can't take back those nights with Daniel or erase the betrayal. All I can do is live with it. All I can do is try to be someone who would never make those choices again. All I can do is hope that someday the guilt will soften into something more manageable, something that doesn't wake me up at 3 a.m. with my heart pounding and my stomach in knots. I don't know if Emma has forgiven me. I don't know if she ever will. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I do know this. I will spend the rest of my life making sure I never hurt someone like that again. I will be more careful with people's trust. I will honor the relationships in my life instead of taking them for granted. And I will remember Emma, not just as the friend I lost, but as a reminder of what happens when you let your worst impulses win. I cheated with my best friend's fiancé. I destroyed the most important friendship of my life, and I regret it more than I can ever express. This is my confession. This is my truth, and this is something I'll carry with me forever. I don't expect sympathy. I don't expect understanding. I just needed to say it out loud, to admit what I did, to own the consequences, to stop hiding from the person I became. Because maybe that's where real change begins. Not in forgiveness or redemption, but in honest acknowledgement of the harm you've caused. I hurt someone who loved me. I betrayed someone who trusted me, and I have to live with that. That's my story. That's what I did, and I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, endlessly sorry. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't bring back what was lost. Sorry is just a word I'll be saying to myself for the rest of my life. I recently started volunteering at a women's shelter. Not because I think it absolves me of what I did, but because I wanted to do something meaningful with the person I'm trying to become. I wanted to help people who are going through difficult times, to be there for them in the ways I wasn't there for Emma. It's hard work, emotionally exhausting, but it's also grounding. It reminds me that there's more to life than my own guilt and regret, that I can still contribute something positive to the world, even if I've done something terrible. One of the women at the shelter, Maria, told me her story a few weeks ago. Her best friend had helped her husband hide assets during their divorce, had lied for him, had actively worked against her. The betrayal had devastated Maria, left her questioning everything she thought she knew about friendship and loyalty. I listened to her story, and I saw Emma in her pain, and I wanted to tell Maria that I understood, that I'd been on the other side of that betrayal, that I knew how much damage it could cause, but I didn't, because it wasn't about me. It was about her, and her healing, and her journey forward. Instead, I just listened. I made her tea. I sat with her in her pain, without trying to fix it, or diminish it, or make it about myself. And when she thanked me for listening, for not judging her for still being angry at her friend even though it had been years, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe this is what redemption looks like. Not a grand gesture or a moment of forgiveness, but small acts of kindness, of being present for others, of using what you've learned from your mistakes to help someone else. I'm not healed. I don't know if I'll ever be fully healed from this, but I'm learning to live with what I've done. I'm learning that you can be both the villain of someone else's story and still find a way to move forward. I'm learning that regret doesn't have to be the only thing that defines you, even if it's a permanent part of your history. The other day, I was walking through Camden Market and I saw someone who looked like Emma from behind. Same hair, same build, same way of walking. My heart stopped. I almost called out to her, but then she turned, and it wasn't Emma. It was a stranger, someone I'd never seen before, and I felt this strange mix of relief and disappointment. Relief because I wasn't ready to face her, didn't know what I'd even say if I saw her. Disappointment because some part of me still hopes, irrationally, that we might cross paths one day, and she might give me a chance to apologize properly. But that's not fair to her. She doesn't owe me closure. She doesn't owe me anything. Her life is moving forward without me, as it should be. And mine needs to move forward too, carrying the weight of what I did, but not letting it completely paralyze me. I've started writing, not professionally or anything like that, just journaling, processing my thoughts and feelings on paper. My therapist suggested it, and at first I resisted. I didn't want to dwell on everything, didn't want to relive the details over and over. But it's actually helped. Writing down what happened, acknowledging the choices I made, examining the person I was and the person I'm trying to become, it's made things clearer somehow. And in that writing, I've discovered something I didn't expect. I'm angry at myself, yes. But I'm also beginning to have compassion for the person I was. The scared, insecure woman who made terrible choices because she didn't know how to be alone, how to value herself outside of someone else's attention. That doesn't excuse what I did, but it helps me understand it. And understanding is the first step toward making sure it never happens again. I think that's what I want people to understand from my story. Not that what I did was okay, it absolutely wasn't, but that people who do terrible things aren't always monsters. Sometimes they're just broken people making broken choices, and that brokenness has real devastating consequences. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I'd set boundaries with Daniel from the beginning. I'd address my own insecurities before they consumed me. I'd value Emma's friendship more than my own fleeting desires. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is learn from the wreckage we've created and try, every single day, to be better than we were yesterday. I don't know what the future holds for me. I don't know if I'll ever have friendships as deep as what Emma and I had. I don't know if I'll ever trust myself enough to let someone love me. I don't know if the guilt will ever fully release its grip on my heart. But I know I'm trying. I know I'm committed to being someone who learns from her mistakes rather than repeating them. I know I'm building a life that's honest and intentional, even if it's smaller and lonelier than the life I had before. And I know that Emma is out there somewhere, living her life, planning her wedding, surrounded by people who love her and didn't betray her. And I hope she's happy. I genuinely, deeply hope she's happy. Because she deserves happiness. She deserves love and loyalty and friendships that honor her. She deserves all the beautiful things that life has to offer, and I deserve to carry the weight of what I did to her. Not as punishment, exactly, but as a reminder of the kind of person I never want to be again. This is my confession. This is my regret. This is the truth I've been living with for 2 years. I cheated with my best friend's fiancé. I destroyed the most important relationship in my life, and I will carry that with me forever, not as an excuse, not as a plea for sympathy, but as an acknowledgement of the harm I caused and the responsibility I have to be better. If you're reading this, if you're going through something similar, whether you're the one who betrayed or the one who was betrayed, I want you to know that the pain is real. The consequences are real. The weight of these choices doesn't disappear just because time passes. But you can still move forward, you can still grow, you can still become someone better than who you were in your worst moment. It won't erase what happened, it won't undo the damage, but it will give you a path forward, a way to live with yourself, a chance to contribute something positive to the world instead of just taking from it. That's what I'm trying to do. Every day, in small ways, I'm trying to be better, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Acknowledge what we've done, accept the consequences, and commit to being different. I cheated with my best friend's fiancé, and I regret it. That's my story. That's my truth. And I hope somehow that sharing it helps someone else avoid making the same terrible mistakes I made. Because the cost of betrayal is so much higher than you think it will be. The person you lose might not be the one you betrayed. It might be yourself. And finding your way back to being someone you can respect, someone you can live with, that's the hardest journey of all. But it's a journey worth taking, even if you walk it alone.